Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bilbo?
Present.
Mr. Haas?
Here.
Ms. Howe? Mr. Kelleher?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Ms. Sedman? Mr. Schneed?
Present.
Mr. Urban?
Here.
Mr. Vogt?
Here.
Ms. Wakes?
Present.
Mr. McGinley?
Present.
9 of 11.
Okay. Any additions or deletions to the work session agenda? I'd like to add one addition would be the CBA highlights. Mr. Parsnick will make that presentation. And we'll make it under county council. So it'll be like make it number 8 on the front page, and then we'll go back to number 8 on the back page, okay? Yeah, okay.
It's on the podium. Yeah.
There is a copy of the actual contract available on the podium also. Okay? This evening we have do we have a motion to accept the work session agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? None heard. Motion carries. And this evening we're going to begin with the District Attorney's Annual Report. Ms. Salavantis is here with us this evening, and we appreciate her presence with us. And when you're ready, please start.
Thank you. Everyone can hear me. First of all, thank you for having me. As you guys know, every year I give this report as to what happened in our previous year. I tried to focus on some of the issues that were really important issues for that year. So I will touch upon them. I'll go quickly through some of the stats in our office and then focus on those specific issues. If I went over everything that we did in the year, we would be here all night. So that is why I'm going to focus on just a couple of them. And I'll try to make it quick because I know you guys have a long agenda. So let's begin. I wanted to show you how many new cases were opened in 2018, which is 4,436. This number does not include juvenile cases. I will go over that later on, as well as cases still under investigation, PFA violations, things of that nature. This is just the adult criminal cases that we handle regularly. I also wanted to show you the total number of cases disposed of in 2018, which is 4,826. We are working very closely with the courts in trying to work on our backlog of cases. I believe this year we were able to get rid of about 600 to 700 cases in our backlog, which is a big deal. We have really focused on the relationship between the courts, the public defender's office, conflict counsel, and our office, and how we can move these cases as quickly as possible. And we are accomplishing that. This shows you how many cases we had in 2018, how many trials, excuse me, we had called in 2018, which is 5,050 cases. 2017, it'll show you the drastic difference. We had 2,062 cases called for trial. So as you see, we are moving these cases. I broke them down by judge, so you have sort of an understanding of what judges are seeing, what cases. Judge Jeddo is our DUI judge. He oversees our DUIs with Judge Mundy. Judge Jeddo is responsible for all the bench trials for DUIs. That's why you only see Judge Jeddo up there. Judge Lupus, Judge Sklarowski, and Judge Vogt are our criminal judges. So that's why you will see they have the largest amount of cases. The other judges, Judge Parentoni handles juvenile cases, but you'll see Judge Gartley, Judge Hughes, Judge Parentoni have a small number of adult criminal cases. That's because they're on rotation for cases such as homicides. This, I wanted to give you an idea of how many DUIs we are seeing in coming through Luzerne County. I did want to focus on a lot of people that really talk about the opioid epidemic, how we should be looking at the number of overdoses and deaths as a result of the opioid crisis. However, I do want to emphasize that we still have, I would say, about 1/3 of our cases in Luzerne County, as you can see, are DUIs. We still have a major issue with alcoholism in Luzerne County, and that has still remained a focus for us. Although we are focusing on the opioid epidemic and the drug overdoses, we have made it a point to also focus on the drinking that's going on in our community and how some people drink at an extreme. So that has been another focus of mine along with the drug overdoses. ARDs, accelerated rehabilitative dispositions. We had 60 more applicants this year, in 2018, excuse me, than the previous year, so we had a total of 679. They may be denied, some people apply and may be denied because they don't fit the criteria. As you see, we have 47 pending, and what that shows you is we saw an increase in our revenue line item in 2018 of $52,309 because of the additional people going through the ARD procedure. We have been looking at different ways of, or different criteria to accept more individuals in the ARD program. A lot of people talk about the prisons and that you see people that are just in the prisons for small possession charges. That is not the case. A lot of individuals that may have a possession charge of marijuana, we are accepting and have been accepting them in the ARD program. They also, I am aware that Wilkes-Barre City and Hazleton City are giving just summary citations for those types of cases. I like the ARD process because we're able to, if someone has an issue, we're able to put them through certain treatment programs. And we're able to watch to see if they need any other treatment that may be available to them. Juvenile cases. We had 287 juvenile cases in 2018. Our juvenile unit consists of 2 full-time ADAs and 1 support staff. This number does not include cases where they do not appear in front of the judge, which are informal adjustments or warrant counsel. God bless you. I do want to emphasize, and I talked about this last year, and we are continuing to see the same thing. We're seeing a lot of cases that are direct files. That means that the type of charge being filed against some juveniles, because there's very serious charges, they get directly filed into adult court. So we are seeing that taking place. So the number of juvenile cases we're seeing are going down. And it's increasing on the adult side. Youth aid panel. I know that you guys probably know all about it. I talk about it every year. But we had, this is for nonviolent first offenses for juveniles. And we had 103 juveniles apply to be in the youth aid panel. Of the 103, 66 were actually accepted. So the rest of those cases, they typically just don't meet the criteria to actually be permitted into the youth aid panel. So that was 37 of those cases. Of the 66 that went in front of a panel and were given a contract, 46 were successfully completed. 6 failed, 11 are still pending. 2 after, sometimes when the panels sit and they talk to the individual, the juvenile, they realize that they may need more counseling or something like drug and alcohol, extensive treatment, that they will refer it back to us and say, I think this should be handled outside of the youth aid panel. So we work on a different process for those individuals. And then we had 1 individual that was deceased. The opioid epidemic, I know that you had an individual speak, and thank you for allowing her to speak. I think it's important that everybody hears different stories, that there are stories of hope, and that we should be looking at different ways to help these individuals who are suffering from substance use disorder. Instead of just throwing them in prison and saying, you know, maybe that's where they'll get their help. So we have been looking at different ways of helping these individuals. I know in the past I've talked about it, but I just want to quickly go through. This has really dominated the media, dominated the topics in different organizations, community organizations. People want to know more. I try to get out there and speak to individuals, let them know what law enforcement's seeing and what we're doing. We're doing different things in Luzerne County, thinking outside the box. So I'm going to quickly go through all of that with you. As you guys know, we talk about it all the time. We're in our 5th year of seeing record high overdose fatalities in Luzerne County. And so I actually wanted to focus on some positive things that were taking place because at this point, this year, we are seeing that there is a slight decline. And I hate saying that because I'm worried I'm going to jinx myself and jinx the people around me. But in 2019, today, we have had 19 overdose fatalities with 3 pending. In 2018, at this time last year, we had 26. So it's telling you we're seeing a decline, which is great news. Some of that, I believe, is with regard to what we're doing with naloxone, or Narcan, as a lot of people refer to it. We're trying to make sure that everybody in the community has access to Narcan and putting it in the hands of all law enforcement, EMS, anybody that wants to make sure that they have the ability to use it if they need to. In our office, we give out the Narcan to individuals that, through our grant, that we're permitted to. So last year alone, we gave 394 kits out. I wanted to break it down so you know. They allowed us to give it to police departments, EMS, school districts, colleges that asked for it. We were able to give it to the Day Reporting Center and the Luzerne County Prison. I believe, possibly, if I recall correctly, I think probation and parole are also carrying it as well, or they're in the process. They've all been certified to carry it. So we're really trying to make sure everybody in the county has access to it, as well as anybody in the community that we can provide access to. 158 of the 394 kits were used. And I do want to emphasize, this is just with regard to what we're giving out. The Wilkes-Barre Fire Department gave out over 1,000 doses last year. And the reason why I want to emphasize this is because if you add up all of the usages that were used, just Wilkes-Barre Fire Department, if they did not use Narcan to help, I would say 91% typically are revived using Narcan. If they did not use Narcan and take advantage of that, we would have thousands of deaths on our hands. So because of being proactive and making sure that we're fully equipped to handle these situations, I think we're seeing a decline in the actual fatalities. People are doing different events as well, and I wanted to use this one, the December 13th event. They called it the Narcan distribution event. That was through the Pennsylvania Department of Health. They were giving out kits to family members that needed it. They only showed up with 94 kits. They ran out almost immediately. We actually were able to provide them 96 more kits that were almost gone immediately as well. So it tells you there are people that are out there that are looking for this this prescription, this medicine that could help. And it's not just families that are suffering from it, they're seeing it in their neighborhoods. They're seeing neighbors falling over, and it's important that everybody has the ability to save a life if they can. So unfortunately, this is a commonplace thing these days, and I'm glad that our community is stepping up and they're doing everything that they can to try to make a difference when it comes to these overdoses. I did want to, I know you don't have it in your slides, but I did want to throw it in. We had our first annual law enforcement and first responder recognition event. And this was just a quick picture I wanted to show you. 21 officers and the Wilkes-Barre City Fire Department were honored for the work that they do. Law enforcement, we are typically the ones that react. The crime is committed, and we're there to respond, to do an investigation, to file charges, and hold people accountable for the crimes that they're committing. These officers go above and beyond. They sit there, if they provide Narcan, they sit and they actually talk to the individuals and try to get them the help that they need. Try to talk to the family and give them information on treatment providers that they could potentially reach out to, and different contact information. You wouldn't believe the families that just walk up to law enforcement because they don't know who else to turn to, and they look at them as someone that can help guide them. So these individuals were recommended either by their chief or some superior that oversee them, and they gave short summaries of why they deserved it. And I was honored to be able to recognize them that day. This is a brand new program I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. This is, it's called the Pre-Arrest Diversion Program. We call it the PAD program. So we were looking at alternative ways to help individuals before they even get involved in the criminal justice system. One way, I was sitting down with our STOP Coalition, Steve Ross, the Wyoming and Luzerne County Drug and Alcohol Director, and I, we're really brainstorming on what we can do beforehand. You hear the stories of the individuals that they get in a car accident, their back, they have a terrible back pain, and they go to the doctors, and now they're hooked. And we're hearing different stories of their professional people that could lose everything if the charges are filed. What can we do to not file those charges and give them a second chance? And this is what we came up with. It is, we piloted it in October of 2018. We were training all law enforcement. We sat down with them and said, this is what we want to do. We want to give you guys discretion on whether or not someone would fit the criteria of entering the pre-arrest diversion program. If this is an individual that you're seeing regularly, you know that they have a substance use disorder, and something has to be done, and you think that this program can maybe be the change in their life, and say to them, you know what, you're a nurse and you could lose everything if these charges are filed. I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to take these charges and put them aside. I'm going to give you an opportunity to go into treatment. Steve Ross and his department came up with a 90-day program that they have to complete in order to have those charges completely disappear. We don't do anything with them. If they complete the 90-day treatment criteria that is put together by drug and alcohol, then they walk away. They don't have the charges filed. I say all the time, once you get involved in the criminal justice system, you worry that now they will always be involved in the criminal justice system. And there are a lot of statistics out there that talk about that. And so we are trying to do something different. And because of that, because of Luzerne County thinking outside the box, we were contacted, I was contacted by the Addiction Policy Forum. It's a nonprofit organization based in DC. They were looking at all different states and coming up with different ideas of what people are doing, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. They saw this program and were so happy to hear about it. They thought so highly of it after talking to us for a while, that they are actually going to honor us on April 9th and provide us an award, Luzerne County an award, for really looking at different ways to address these issues. And as I put there, they're looking at ways across the nation that are actively transforming the field of substance use disorder. And they chose Luzerne County out of 300 applicants throughout the entire nation. So that is a huge plug for Luzerne County. We're doing great things here, and I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of it. And on top of it, because of our program, we're seeing other agencies doing the same thing. The Attorney General's office is following in our footsteps. They're starting almost the same exact program in different counties. So for once, Luzerne County is ahead of the game. Treatment court. This is another positive. You guys know all about it. I talk about it every year, but I just wanted to give you some of the stats on it this year. 212 graduates. We have 58 current participants. But if you notice the recidivism rate, first year 13%, so that is 13% may end up back into the criminal justice system. Second year, 6%, third year, 4%. So it tells you the longer that they remain in treatment court and are monitored regularly and remain committed, that only out of all of the participants, 96% succeed and will never end up in the criminal justice system again. So that's just wonderful to know, and I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of it. And again, I know I touched on this every year. Approximate savings per participant is $41,332. So we are always looking to expand treatment court, admit more people if we can, and I always want to give a plug for the treatment court. The Luzerne County Drug Task Force. As you know, we started that we took over supervision in 2016. I just wanted to give you just a quick overview, sorry, I had 2017, of what happened in 2018. Total drug task force arrests in 2018, we had 134, seized 24 weapons, and you'll see the amount of drugs that were seized. I do want to point out the amount that we're seeing in heroin and fentanyl. The heroin dash fentanyl is that there is some heroin mixed in with the fentanyl. That is the difference between that and just pure fentanyl. It is also important for you to see the fentanyl. We have 5 kilos plus. I wanted to emphasize that because one of our big busts was the 5 kilos in Hazleton. So you understand, 500,000 people are killed with, I'm trying to do this right. If that 5 kilos ended up on the streets in Hazleton, that could amount to 2.5 million people dying. So that puts it into perspective. That amount could kill 2.5 million people. And it's coming into Hazleton. And it's not just Hazleton. Everybody wants to point there and say, well, that's Hazleton's problem. It's coming in everywhere. And so we're trying to be very proactive, trying to track down what individuals are selling on our streets. Because of the demand that we're seeing, you're getting a lot of people from New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia coming in and selling here. To the point where DEA is declaring that Hazleton is a source city. We're seeing drugs coming from Mexico and China. We're seeing drugs coming from all over the nation. We're watching the postal services because we're seeing that happening a lot where it's being shipped in through the mail. So it's not just, the hand-to-hand on the streets that we're dealing with it in many different ways now. So our guys are actively on the streets trying to prevent these drugs from getting in the hands of our residents. This was another area I wanted to bring up before going on to the actual budget. We have internet crimes against children. We are very active in Luzerne County with regard to cyber tips. that come in. And last year alone, we had 82 cyber tips that came in from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We have one detective who is fully dedicated to working on just following up on these cyber tips. Through those 82 cyber tips, we were able to execute 32 search warrants, assist local police departments 40 times, and made 24 arrests. It is also important to point out that I like to be very proactive when it comes to these types of cases and really getting out and speaking to our children, our families. So that is a major part of the detective's responsibility who is assigned to the internet crimes against children. And so I wanted you to know that we had 14 public events, speaking events, just regarding how to be safe when it comes to social media. That is a topic parents want to talk to me about all of the time. And I will tell you, I can't even keep up with the changes that take place with regard to social media. There are new apps coming out every day that help kids disguise things from their parents. They try to remain proactive, but it's hard. So we're trying to provide as much information to families as we can. And so, through those speaking engagements, we were able to actually speak to over 1,000 people. So we're really actively getting out there and trying to make sure people understand what is going on. I thought I'd add a little, I love animals, so I'd add Spike to the presentation. If you're around the courthouse, everybody's seen Spike. Spike is our new electronic detection canine. I wanted to give you a little bit of backstory on him, and it goes with our detective, our ICAC detective. So because we are so active when it comes to these cases and following up on cyber tips, and we're so aggressive in prosecuting, we were chosen out of, I don't even know how many, there were dozens of people that actually put in just Pennsylvania. We were chosen nationally to be one of 3 dogs, to receive one of 3 dogs. And so we received Spike, and he was fully funded by Operation Underground Railroad. This is a nonprofit out of Pittsburgh that focuses on ways to stop child human trafficking. And so they heard about our office and how active we are, that it actually came down to they were fighting with another organization because the 2 of them wanted to pay for our dog because of how proud they were of what we were doing in Luzerne County. But Operation Underground Railroad ended up winning. And so they funded Spike, they paid for his training, and I just wanted to give you, he joined our office in November, but really got active, I would say, in December. So just in this short period of time, he has conducted searches with probation and parole. I think it was 94 cells. He went over and did a search of the prison, and that is going to remain a constant thing for the prison. Because we see a lot of cell phones that are smuggled into the prison. We want to make sure that that we can provide as much assistance with Spike as possible. He also has assisted in 11 search warrants with not only our office, but the state police has used him, the Attorney General's office, and local police. We just recently had a request from the FBI as well. So everybody is aware of Spike. Everyone's trying to get him. And I wanted you to understand what he is able to do. So these, and I apologize, they're not in your packet. I wanted to add them so you knew. These are different pictures of what he is able to accomplish. So when you are going in as a detective, you're going into a house and you're trying to find as many electronic devices that can hold images, videos, anything of that nature that would have child pornography on it. And when they go into the house, sometimes as humans, we aren't going to be able to catch everything. When you see some of these little tiny storage cartridges, USBs and or whatever, they're all different names that they have, that they're so tiny they could be hidden anywhere. Spike is able to find things that are minuscule and things that the human eye isn't even able to comprehend or understand. because these criminals, they're smart. And I say that, and so you understand what I mean. If you look in that drawer, if I looked in there, I would think nothing of it. I thought that was just a cigarette lighter. And when you see the bottom picture, it actually ended up being a storage device that held thousands of videos of child pornography. And Spike was able to find that. We would never have found it otherwise. This is what he brings to the table. We're able to find evidence to help us in these investigations and these searches. So he has been a tremendous asset so far, and continues to be. Moving on to our budget. This would be quick. Expenditures for our 2018 budget, we had $4,421,000 approximately. We expended, $4,340,847. So we ended up coming under budget by approximately $80,000. And then with our revenue line item, revenue in our budget, I wanted to break it down so you saw exactly what was coming in. Grants, total of $468,062. That is federal and state, and then expense reimbursement, which includes I know we talked about DA salaries, the drug task force expense reimbursements, youth aid panel, mental health, things of that nature that would that we would receive in revenue. It amounted to $246,048. Our ARD fees, as I told you, went up. So we had budgeted $100,000. It's at $152,000. And then miscellaneous, we have right to knows, expungements, bail forfeitures, restitution, amounted to just a little over $13,000. So we actually came in over our revenue projection and with an increase of $37,021. So I just wanted to give you a quick rundown on that. But that is it. I tried to go through that as fast as possible. I'm sorry if I spoke really fast and you didn't understand some of the stuff, but if you guys have any questions for me.
Questions for District Attorney Salvanis?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Yes, Mr. Berger.
Number one, your drug task force, is that all the drugs by all the federal agencies and the state police that have been found in this county last year, or is this just your task force?
That's just through the task force.
So it doesn't include what the state police?
No, if they were coupled up with us, it would.
Right.
But if the state police did it, they would have their own numbers, and the FBI or DEA, if they had certain things going on, they'd have their own numbers as well.
Could you get those numbers for us?
I could. I will.
Okay, because I think it would be important. One of the, Mr. Griffith asked that we write a letter, and I think we should write the letter to the president, because those are actually agencies under the president, not under the senators, and ask for help. But we need all these numbers. We need the numbers from the state police. We need the federal numbers, the DEA numbers, along with our task force numbers, because I think that's only a small picture of what goes on in the county. Second one is I applaud you for your internet crimes against children. I'd like to see in the future internet crimes against the elderly, because I think there's a lot of that taking place out there. And whether you can develop a task force or not for that, I'd be willing to fund you for that.
Oh, you guys all heard that. You heard that.
Because I'm on my way out, so I'd be willing to do that for you. And then the last one is, you said that you used Spike in the prison. How many phones did you find in there?
We did not find any.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Good.
which is a great thing.
Good, okay. I'm glad, because I'd be looking the other way if you did.
Yeah,
All right.
nope, nothing found in the prison, which is great.
Good.
But you want to keep that up, because then people,
Sure.
that scares them.
They don't belong in there.
Right, exactly.
They just lead to more crime and retribution for people
Right.
and everything else, right?
Other questions, Mr. Haas?
Yes, Stephanie, welcome again. Always good having you.
Thank you.
Every year you seem like you come under budget, so we personally appreciate that. You're doing a
I
great
try.
job. Recidivism rate for the program, fantastic. I mean, 4%, it's like unheard of for programs. So I hats off to you and the team. Kind of piggyback on what Steve asked about We have asset forfeiture when we have crimes with opioids and stuff. I know Greg asked that a lot too. What's the status with that? Are we seeing a change in how the forfeiture is administered? How we can put more of those funds into tackling the opioid crisis? I know you can't disclose a lot of stuff by the very nature of it, but do we see initiative on the state or federal level to move that in that direction to help us combat that problem?
Well, I can say that through the use of the drug task force and the money that's coming in to help us with the drug task force, this is how we are able to hire additional people. So you guys will have on your agenda an additional individual, an agent through the drug task force that we want to bring on full time that will be dedicated to just helping assist in all drug cases in Luzerne County. So with that funding, we're able to do that. But we only have so much. So it's very difficult for us to fund anything more. The Attorney General's office tries to provide us as much as they can. However, they also have to provide all the other counties funding for the work that they're doing. So they're assisting us as much as they possibly can. So we are looking at different ways to help through the drug work that we're doing.
So we're looking at one full-time staff member to do that.
Yes.
What's the formula for that with all the other counties? Is it based on need? Is it just a percentage of your budget? Are you maybe not privy to that information?
You know what? I've asked that of the Attorney General's office. I know that they have it based on the class, but like for us, we're a third-class county, so we get a little more than, say, Wyoming County would get. But also, I believe it's with regard to how active our drug task force is. I have been actively working with Attorney General Shapiro to see if we could get more money, and he is made aware of how active we are, what the issues are that we're dealing with. They're providing more assistance. We have certain agents that come into, and I don't want to give too much information because I don't want it to be out in the public too much, but coming into Luzerne County, assisting us with different things that we need with regard to the drug work that we're doing. So they're providing personnel when they can, but again, they have to help the entire state. So it's all dependent on the amount that they're requesting for each county and their size.
Okay, very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? I have one question.
Yes.
When we did our budget back in the latter part of 2018, we talked about potential for a couple homicide trials that were potentially scheduled for 2019.
The death penalty.
The death penalty
Death
cases.
penalty.
Okay, yes.
So where are we? Is there any change in status with any of those?
One has pled.
So one has been removed
Yes.
from that status?
One is still an active death penalty case that is
Okay.
ongoing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
report. We appreciate it very much. And if you would hang out for a few minutes, we're moving on to the next item, which deals with the request you've made. And going down to number 2, discussion regarding an ordinance amending the 2019 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County, and this is in regards to a drug task force officer that would be added, right, in addition to your task force, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Pedrick?
If I may, Mr. Chair, and obviously I'll defer to the district attorney on this. This is a position that the district attorney was able to secure funding for from the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office through some hard work by her and her office. She's been able to have 100% of the salary, 100% of the benefits. The county's portion from the district attorney's budget will be just the pension requirements. But she does have the ability in her 2019 budget in order to easily cover those. Obviously, this is a drug task force officer. It is not covered by the detective's contract. This is a management position, and it will be utilized solely for the drug task force and to combat the opioid epidemic that we have going on here. Sat down with the district attorney, reviewed the process, reviewed the job description. This is something the county administration would fully support.
Okay.
We would need a county council amendment to the budget because it will be adding new revenue into the Luzerne County FY 2019 budget. So we will need your approval in order to accept that revenue in order for her to create the position.
Okay. Any questions in that regard?
How does it affect the 2020 budget?
Well, as long as the funding's in place from the Attorney General's office, please, District
That will
Attorney,
be,
if there's something
so
that-
for, when we're preparing for the next budget, it'll be the same, the revenue that will be coming in to fund it.
except for the retirement, correct?
Yes, correct.
Which is what, 5%?
5%.
So approximately $2,000 or
Yeah.
$2,200 in this
Correct.
particular case, and that would be our responsibility in the general budget, correct?
Correct.
That answer your question?
And this year that will, just, yes, for 2020, this year it would be covered. We have money in our budget.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I'd just like to thank her for, again, for doing a great job when, after 4 years, elected officials get their report card, and the report card is, you're running again and nobody's running against you. So, to yourself and your staff, thank you for doing a great job for Luzerne County and the citizens of Luzerne County.
Thank you.
Okay, I think you're, unless we have any other questions, sounds like we're, thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you for your help in being able to fund that position so that we can have a little more help with the drug task force. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
And I think Mr. Griffin, who's sitting in the front, probably appreciates it too.
Great job, great job.
Moving down to item number 3, ordinance again amending the 2019 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County, dealing with a transportation planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, we're in a similar situation with regard to a new position looking to add to the 2019 budget. This is a new position under the Planning and Zoning Department for Transportation Planner. This is a 100% funded position from PennDOT, meaning PennDOT will pay the salary, the benefits, and the pension in order to do this work for our roads. I want to thank Mr. Eddy, who's done a really impressive job in his short term here as our Planning and Zoning Director in order to obtain this funding from PennDOT. Obviously, if anybody's traveling on our county roads, we need the assistance. We'll be there. I sit on the MPO for PennDOT. We're doing some really good things, but there's always more need for more and more staff in order to really effectuate. There's a lot of projects going on here in northeastern Pennsylvania. For a lot of years, Luzerne County was pushed off to the side in that MPO, and now we're taking more of a position of a primary position, working with Lackawanna County. Not a primary position, but a 50-50 split. And this position would definitely help us do that. Once again, 100% funded by PennDOT. If the PennDOT funding would go away, this position would be eliminated.
Questions for Mr. Pedri?
I'm seeing here, if I could, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
I'm seeing here in Mr. Eddy's memo, it's on page 8, council members who want to see it. So it appears on number 3, he writes, the gap between the budget and the reimbursement is due in part to losing 1 of 2 dedicated transportation staff. So is that just Luzerne County, or is that the MPO altogether?
That's the MPO altogether.
All right, so our area is just lost out on reimbursements because
Correct.
we didn't have the person.
Yeah, well, I mean, Lackawanna County made some adjustments to their staff
Uh-huh.
recently, and they used to really be taking a large part of this.
Sure.
So now we're getting more and more involved from our side of things as well. And we're working with Lackawanna County very well. I mean, like, our relationship has never been better, actually.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks, Mr. Manning.
Any other questions? And again, this requires a budget amendment because there will be some additional funding that would be coming into the 2019 budget. So that would be on the agenda for next meeting.
And just so council's clear, as I stated in my email to you earlier, I will hold off on creating this position up until the final of your vote. If you decide that you allow the amendment, I'll move forward with creation of these 2 positions. If you decide not to, then obviously I can't create them.
Okay. Moving down to number 4, discussion regarding a resolution entering into a lease for a portion of land at the Luzerne County Annex for use by the Flower Tent.
I'm going to
And
defer.
this is the annex located in 44th?
It is, and I'll defer to Mr. O'Neill on this one.
Okay. Mr. O'Neill?
Yes, I received a phone call from Mr. Tom Ancilio, who is one of the co-owners. His brother Tim is with us this evening. of the flower tent business. They have locations now throughout the country. I believe their original location was in the Midway Shopping Center, if I'm not mistaken.
Across the street at the Colonial Plaza.
Correct, okay. They are seeking or had requested the use of part of our parking area in front of the Wyoming Valley Airport, which is currently used by the 44th Annex, primarily by Magistrate Barilla's office for day-to-day business. He was looking to set up his tent in that area for a term beginning on April 10th and running through June 20th. To operate his flower business. In exchange for use of an area that was, the tent itself was 30 by 60. We had marked it off in the parking area. I had talked to our district attorney's office, who has occasionally used the annex for grand jury hearings, I believe. I understand that gets fairly busy, but she has none scheduled during this period, so she didn't seem concerned about the loss of the parking spaces. I also contacted Magistrate Barilla and spoke directly to him about the loss of the parking area in that parking lot. He said he didn't see a problem with it. As I said, Mr. Mitchell went down, marked off with some cones the area that would be utilized by that tent, and Mr. Magistrate Barilla indicated that he would not have any problem with that. He didn't feel that would be a detriment to his operations. So with that being said, I simply I have Mr. Encilio is here. Tim is here today if there's any other questions regarding the business. But they have asked for use of that space in exchange for a fee of $3,000 for that period.
About 3 months, correct?
It's a little more than 3 months. Yeah. Actually, I'm sorry, 2 months and 10 days.
Correct.
2 months and 10 days.
Okay,
Yeah.
It'll be less than 3 months. We're usually done by the end of June.
okay. Questions for Mr. O'Neill? Question I would have is how did they arrive at that lease number? Is there any formula or any particular way?
I did not have an opportunity in the short amount of time that's passed. This was brought to my attention about a week and a half ago to really do any in-depth research on what that square footage would typically lease out at.
Okay.
That figure that was given was an offer made by the Encilios in exchange for that area.
Is that what you've been paying normally, Mr. Encilio?
That's pretty close to average.
Okay. The second thing I have to say is when I read through the lease, I noticed that everything would be cleaned up every evening, everything would be prim and proper, so at the beginning you wouldn't have any debris and things,
It'll look like we were never there.
which I think is very important because that's a public parking area for our offices that are located there, so
That was my concern, and that's why I
Yeah.
checked with those who utilize that area.
we appreciate that part of it. Anything else, any other questions? Okay, it'll be on the agenda for April 9th. Mr. Swets?
While Mr. Swets is making his way to the podium, I want to take this opportunity to recognize that the county received some great news today. It was reported widely in the media, as well as an email that earlier sent to you. The county received 2 grants today from the state, and I want to thank our state legislators and our state reps for their hard work in making sure that those grants came across. The first one is over $330,000 that's going to be utilized for a Now on One project. That means $330,000 will not have to be sought after by this county council in later this year when we come to you and talk about the 911 upgrade project. This $330,000 will go to build a tower in the Sweet Valley section of Luzerne County. It'll provide radio coverage to the Ricketts Glen State Park, an area that if somebody is in need of emergency services, they should have the ability in order to reach out to 911. And this is a huge win for Luzerne County. I want to thank specifically our grant writer, Michelle Sparich, Fred Rosenkrantz for his hard work on this, as well as the Redevelopment Authority, who actually sponsored us to apply for that grant. Second grant is over $200,000 that we received from the Luzerne County Multimodal, from the PennDOT's Multimodal, actually it's not PennDOT, actually, it's the DCED multimodal, and that will go for the Hanover Industrial Park. This is where Chewy is and Patagonia. What we're finding is bus traffic has greatly increased in this area. LCTA is running buses that now 24 hours a day. It has came to us with some concerns based upon there is a lack of curbing, a lack of sidewalks, a lack of bus shelters, so that the people can get to work safely, can get out of the rain. They can pull off to the side for the curbing purposes, and this grant will get us a large part of the way to get us across that line. This $200,000 will go just for those things to make sure that our citizens can get to work safely. This was once again came from DCED for their multimodal. We're asking for a different number of multimodal grants going on. We have a bunch of other grants going on. I sent County Council an update a couple weeks ago, but it's nice to have some good news and to have some money coming in from the state this way as opposed to the other way around.
Very good. Mr. Swets?
I'm going to start with the budget performance report. So I'll start at the totals and then give a little bit of detail. So on page 76 and 98 in your agenda is the totals. You'll see that for the month we had $3,100,000. We spent 6.1. Remember, in prior years, this is why we get the tax anticipation note. That $3 million is primarily tax dollars that came in, even though the bills went out in the beginning of February. As I said at the voting meeting, the tax collectors aren't required to turn in the money until that second week. But again, because of bonding and because of the amount of dollars they have voluntarily and have done it in the past, turned in money beforehand. So February, there's no required reimbursement, but we got $3 million from February when the bills went out until the end of this month. Also, one of the things we talked about, and you could see in the middle of the report on pages 58 and 59, Mr. Urban had asked primarily about the prison, our correctional facility. And I think we talked before when we talked about the $105, $110, and there's minimal manning requirements, and there's certain things that are in that dollar amount. But you'll see that some of the things that aren't, like the water, the sanitation, the sewer, some of that with less people actually being in the prison have gone down. Some of that is timing as well, though. So 2 months in, when we put a lot of time in on the, obviously the 2018 audit process, I don't want to go crazy, but we are tracking it. We will have a savings, and if we have a significant savings, we can come to council and maybe do something with it. But right now, we're just tracking it because manning requirements are the same. It's really more water, linens, and utilities and things like that.
Okay.
Also in the report is, as I said, 2 months, there's really not much. We're focusing on the audit. In your packet is the audit update. That audit update was given to the audit committee. We added one or two that was inadvertently missed. It was our first time giving a written update of all the audits. We can tell you that the auditors have been on site at most. I believe the one they're starting next week, it's April 1st. Everything is spelled out. Our team at the county, Children and Youth, all the human service agencies. The 630 aging is done, and the other two have drafts and will be done this week. So at this point, and we are very early, we're on time. So we'll be providing an update to this every time of where we're at during the audit, who's on site, what the progress is. I think also, just so the council knows, the audit committee has access to a portal which tracks our progress. It's really a management tool, just to say. It replaced a list that we used to give an Excel list. But you will get updates from the auditors if necessary. Mr. Johns was here and said, if there's anything that needs to come to council's attention, he will let you know. But the individual list, the Excel spreadsheet that you got, has been replaced by a portal. So we're working with the auditors. We have dates to hit. We're providing the information, and they'll be back on site in 2 weeks. We have things to complete for this week that we're actively working on. So at this point, everyone's aware of the deadlines, aware of the timeline for everything to roll into the county for an on-time audit. And we're working on everything for an unqualified audit as well.
Questions for Mr. Swets? The audit report that is attached now is something that we got last week as the audit committee. And I had asked Mr. Swets to please attach it to his report so that it would be out there every month, so everyone would be aware of where the audit stood. Obviously, that's a great concern for the council. And Mr. Swets, you want to talk about the the Baker Tilly part of that?
Sure. So one of the big items that's brought up is the 5.6 million related to the county due to From Children and Youth. That's been assigned to Baker Tilly. Baker Tilly has been actively working on it. We've had calls scheduled every 2 weeks. We had a call this past Monday. Myself and Adam from Office of Human Services was on the call. We reiterated the timeline that both the county auditors and the children and youth auditors need this information. So we expect to have something in short order. I'm hoping within 3 weeks to a month. We're working on, again, we need to get this information to 2 sets of auditors and if any other work needs to be done. So that was a conversation we had. It's being actively audited, and as soon as we hear anything and have a report or even a draft report, we'll submit it.
So there is ongoing activity in that regard.
Yes.
Questions for Mr. Swets?
I have a general question, Mr.
Yes.
Chair. I asked Mr. Wetz about a month ago regarding the stormwater assessment. I don't know if you should speak to that, if you're the right channel, but what was the county's role in providing information to the entity to
I don't think
assess
that's
that?
Mr. Swets.
Yeah, we,
That's okay.
Sorry.
you know, for the stormwater fee, they asked us for our maps. I think they actually purchased the maps from Luzerne County. Those maps are not to be utilized for engineering purposes. They're for assessment purposes only. So I think they use them as, I don't know what they use them for. You have to touch base with them, but they're not to be utilized for engineering purposes. To follow up on some of the questions earlier, I fully anticipate that the county will receive a stormwater fee for our property that the county owns. I'm hoping to come to an agreement with the Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority where we would be able to provide things like mapping or planning and zoning in order to alleviate those costs or those fees. I don't think it makes any sense for the taxpayers to be paying the bill to taxpayers. I mean, it doesn't. But I think that the sanitary authority hopefully will be receptive to some sort of agreement to work something out.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Urban?
And Mr. Pedri, in that regard, you do pay sanitary authority bills, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
They haven't cut you a break on any of those, have they?
They have not.
They have not, right. So why would you expect them to cut you a break on stormwater fee? And all that does is make the amount of money that the taxpayers on the outside have to pay more.
So
Somebody's got to pick up the cost.
you would rather me pay the fee then?
I'd rather not pay the fee at all. I'd like you to follow the recommendation that I made, is that when you get a bill, now you got a cause of action. You can look at the legislation. You know, this county was not a part and had no interest in the lawsuit that the Chesapeake Bay Foundation had against the EPA.
That's
We weren't
correct.
a party to that.
That's correct.
But we're suffering the consequences. So, I mean, I think that should start right there. We're being told to bear the cost of whatever is required to be done. And I don't think we know what is really required to be done by the sanitary authority, other than they've imposed this stormwater fee. They did it in New Jersey recently too. And, you know, they're at least down there, they said they're gonna use it for, well, they call it a rainwater fee, but they're gonna use it for flood management, flood protection, things like that. Here, they're gonna use it, to clean sewers out that the city says they do themselves. I mean, there are towns and communities that already get billed hundreds of dollars a year to maintain their storm drains and sewers, separate from their tax bills in this county. I mean, so I think you have to take a serious look at the bill when it comes in and have Romelda look at it and say, what is the basis of all of this? Really, what is the basis? If it's the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and the EPA, then we got to go back and find out what has Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority not done that the EPA wants them to do to clean up the bay. Do they want them to pave or put cement bottoms in all the creeks and streams in here? Again, is the river clean when it hits Luzerne County and all at once it's dirty? You know, I mean, what have we done to file lawsuits against New York for dumping sewage every time it rains into the river and comes down this way? I mean, we're paying for that too? Nonsense. I mean, just a small jurisdiction paying to clean up the bay? I don't think so. I think the Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority took the wrong approach here. And I think we're in a position, once we get a bill, now you got a cause of action. You didn't have one until you get the bill.
Any questions on Mr. Swets' report? Thank you. Oh, Mr. Perry.
Brian, the 5.6, you're addressing it. How about the 2.3
Sure, that's, and I should have brought that up because they are kind of related, even though one's done by an outside auditor and one's being done internally. Our children's youth team is working on that internally as part of the audit. So it is being worked on as part of the audit, and we will have an update as the audit progresses. But that's not assigned to a third party.
It's actually part of the 5.6,
Yes,
Right.
some of it is.
some portion of it. Okay, thank you. Moving down to number 6. When we had the settlement of the litigation in regards to the elevators at the prison, part of that was a global settlement, and we were to receive a check for $25,000, which has been received. And there was discussion at that time that would possibly go into the capital reserve because the money that was used to correct the elevators and put them back in working order and meet their standards, that money was taken from the capital reserve fund. I think it was over $80,000, if I remember correctly. So this would be money that came in as part of that litigation settlement. And, currently it resides in our reserve fund for the 2019 budget. But if we wish, we can put it into the capital reserve, and we'll be doing the capital reserve budget shortly, within the next 2 months. We present the council. So if that's your wishes, we will include it in the capital reserve fund as we do that budget. Any comment or suggestions or recommendations? Would everybody be fine with capital reserve? Any other?
Yes.
I think that makes sense, but I certainly wanted the council to have an opportunity to express any thoughts. Okay? Moving down to number 7, discussion regarding an ordinance amending the Luzerne County zoning map to rezone parcels of property in the borough of Luzerne, Pringle, excuse me, I don't say Luzerne, from light industrial, which is an M2 zone, to 2-family residence with the district, which is R2. Questions in that regard?
Any objection?
I don't believe so. No. I think it was received well by parties involved. Anyone else? If not, that'll be on the agenda for our next meeting for a first reading, because it's an ordinance. Mr. Parstic, you want to discuss or provide some highlights with the collective bargaining agreement, please?
Some of the highlights of the new agreement have to do with vacations where, beginning in 2020, employees have to accrue time for vacation. So in the past, they received their vacation time up front in January of every year. They're now going to accrue time. Under Article 8, sick leave, we put an option in the contract for employees that are eligible to retire as an incentive to leave employment with the county, that they can receive up to 35 days of sick leave buyback at full pay. There is a sunset date of June 30th, 2019, or pardon me, March 31st of 2020. And the beginning date would be notification by March 31st of this year.
Which we're going to have trouble meeting because of the fact we just passed it.
No, I believe that some of the employees they knew this when they were doing the ratification, so I don't believe this will be an issue.
Okay, very good.
Under Article 13, call time, employees were paid a minimum of 4 hours for being called out. They will now be paid 5 hours of overtime as a minimum for a call out. Call-outs are average about 13 times a year, so it's not a great time constraint or deal of finance. The on-call pay has increased by about $50 every year. Starts at $625 and in 2022 goes to $650 for those employees that carry the weekly pager. Under Article 21, health and welfare benefits, in 2019, current employees will pay 10%. New employees hired after the ratification of the contract will pay 10%, In 2020, they will continue to pay 12%. New employees will go to 15. In 2021, current employees will be at 12, new employees at 15, and 2022, they would be at 12, and new employees would be at 15. The salary and wages for the top rate employee, the top rate, which is $68,534, those employees receiving that wage in 2019 will get a 1% increase. In 2020, a 1.5% increase. In 2021, a 2% increase. And in 2022, a 2% increase. The starting salary remains at $36,000. For other employees that are not at the top rate, that were hired after January 1 of 2016, there is a progression scale, which is what they will receive going forward. And the starting salary is $36,000. And after 7 years of service, they would be making $45,156. There's a training stipend that we agreed to for 4 or 5 employees that are certified by the courts to be training officers, of a yearly stipend of $500. The clothing and equipment allowance in 2019 is $500. 2020, it's $500. 2021, it's $550, and 2022, it's $550. And the new contract term is 4 years, beginning January 1, 2019, and ending 12/31/2022.
Questions for Mr. Parsnick?
Just, one, I asked this, what's the overall impact on the budget for the next 4 years?
For just the salary increases,
All the increases, factor everything in.
I don't have that information with me. I can get it to you.
The next meeting. fine.
I'd be glad to do that.
Next
Yeah.
meeting would be good.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving over to the second page, discussion regarding resolution sponsoring the Wyoming Free Libraries application for a Keystone grant for public library facilities. Any questions in that regard? This is something they need a sponsor, and they chose to have Luzerne County to be the sponsor, and it was something that would benefit the library located in Wyoming. Okay. Moving to number 9, Act 13, Ms. Wakes, Mr. Haas, Mr. Bilbo, and Mr. Vo. You want to speak to those, please?
Yes. Thank you. Well, we met last week, and we had a very, very productive meeting, and I think you all, I think faculty, oh my God. I think council, you all have the complete packet, correct, Sharon? They received electronically. You've received, yes, everything. So what I'm going to do is tell you what projects we chose, and that means what projects we recommend that council approve. But bear in mind, it's totally up to council as far as the final decision. We had a meeting that we, amazingly, we agreed on all of the choices. So I'm going to start by talking about Wyoming Valley Challenger Baseball. Now, these projects, just because I'm talking about that first, I'm not trying to rank them in any order. I'm telling you all of these that I'm going to talk about tonight we feel are very, very, very worthy. The Challenger Baseball, as a matter of fact, you met many of the team members a few months ago when they came to the Rotunda. And they have asked for $5,000 to fix up a field in Wilkes-Barre at the bog. I don't know if you've ever been to the bog. I think it's in the Parsons section of Wilkes-Barre. The field needs a lot of work. They have been able to obtain $15,000 in donations for the work, but they weren't quite there. They need $20,000, and that's where we come in with the $5,000. The plan is to make the field accessible, to make it usable. They need help paving, fixing the dugouts, making changes to the field house, the bathroom. we're just so happy for them that they finally have a field, and we recommend that we help them complete the project by allocating the $5,000 from the funds. Another project we think is very, very valuable is the West Hazleton borough application. We'd like to recommend $5,000 for this group as well. What they're trying to do is replace equipment at the Cindy Street playground. They have an unsafe playground right now. They would like to use the money to replace the equipment and also to make it ADA compliant. Actually, the park was closed because the equipment does not meet current safety standards. And it's also currently inaccessible to the disabled. So what they want to do is remove the old equipment and put in the new equipment. And once again, they have received a State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources grant for $50,000. They need a local match, and we're going to recommend that we provide $5,000 toward that effort. Next on our list is the Mountaintop Area Little League. We're recommending this organization also receive $5,000. This organization, like the others, have demonstrated partnerships with the community, wonderful community support. This one in particular is a project of surrounding municipalities. The league serves children from very young children from 4 up to the age of 16. And what's really nice about it is it has buy-in from all of the municipalities in the mountaintop area: Nuangola, Fairview, Wright, Rice, Torrance. Actually, children from Hollenbach and Slocum are also welcome in this Mountaintop Little League. They're seeking $250,000 local share grant. What they'd like to do is add lights, and they really need a better pavilion. Part of the reason they're asking for the money is they're limited with the amount of games they can have. When darkness falls, it's a safety hazard for children because they have no lights. And they're also trying to reduce the need for children to travel outside the area to have the baseball and softball experience. So we are encouraging that that you all agree with us that they are very worthy of a $5,000 grant as well. Next on our list is Jackson Township. They're asking money for $5,000 for their recreation park. They need to improve it. They need to rehabilitate the township's only recreation facility. They're looking for new restroom facilities, an additional playground for really young children. They're looking to put in outdoor cooking grills. They're looking to repave a walking area, walking path. They need drainage work, and we're hoping that, and they're also funded by the township to the tune of $145,000. They've also received a grant, several grants, and we'd like to help them out by awarding them $5,000 toward their project. Another project which we feel is very worthy is Dupont Borough. They're only asking for $3,200. This is what's different than all of the other grants. They are lucky enough to have a matching grant of $3,200 from the borough. This is their only recreational facility. It's very heavily used. They're looking to replace the roof on the pavilion. They're looking for a new sink in the concession stand. The inside of the pavilion needs to be painted. They're looking to purchase a parent-child swing. They also are lucky to have buy-in from the community. There are 2 community organizations that are helping them and contributing toward this very worthy project. So we are heartily recommending Dupont Borough to you as well. And our final recommendation is the Wilkes-Barre trolley, the anthracite trolley cars. This is a nonprofit organization. They were asking for $5,000, but we would like to award them $1,800 towards to encourage historical renovation. They would use this money to help them extract Wilkes-Barre's last known trolley car from a Franklin Township property. I don't know if you've noticed, there's been several stories in the newspaper about this trolley car and how it got to be now in Franklin Township. And it was just amazing, not only because the car has been located, but how it was placed there in the first place. When it's moved, it's going to be transported to the Bout Studios in Swearsville for storage and for restoration. The Wilkes-Barre trolley system dissolved in 1950, they are really raising money in the community. They've already raised $10,000 towards this project. What they want to do is remove the trolley car from the cottage and use a crane to do this, and to therefore move it to the Bout Studio. We felt this was a very worthy project. We wish we could give them $5,000. We don't have $5,000, but in our plan, there is $1,800 for this organization. And that's it.
Questions for the committee? Well, thank you. I think you did a great job.
Okay, thank you. Our
All
pleasure.
the projects seem to be very worthwhile, and well, this will be on our agenda for next meeting to vote on those, and then we can move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Going down to council committees, I guess I don't think it's necessary to go through the Act 13 committee again. No, we're good with that. Mr. Keller?
We'll be getting together with our advisor consultant, Sharon Lawrence, and set up a meeting hopefully for late April or sometime mid-May, somewhere in that area.
Okay. Budget, Finance, and Audit, I think you heard most of the information in regards to Mr. Sweats. It was a very good meeting last week. The auditors were very pleased by the work that has been prepared for them. They felt that they have a very good start, and they were very hopeful that everything should move along and meet all the deadlines that are associated with that. Legislative, Mr. Haas?
Legislative meeting, thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks so much to Sheila Seidman, and if Sheila, you're watching, hope you're feeling better. We're going to looking at April 2nd at 4 p.m. We're going to meet down at LCC, and we're going to have a roundtable discussion down there. So we'll try something new this year. Hopefully we get more community involvement and more of our delegation to attend in the flesh rather than send a proxy. And shout out to Mr. Leary, president of the school down there, who's going to host us. So
Thank you.
we're looking at that.
Ms. Wackus?
Yes,
Real estate?
real estate, we have not met. We are waiting for our wonderful real estate market analysis / appraisals to come in for the properties. And as soon as they do, we will meet as a committee. We'll discuss those and make recommendations to council.
Thank you. Ms. Hauk is not with us this evening. Do you have any updates, Ms. Wackus, in that regard?
No, we have not met.
Okay. County Code Review, again, Ms. Hauk is not with us this evening. She did send an email out to myself and Mr. Keller about a date in April to meet. And we'll have to get back and see if that's date's agreeable for everyone, and then hopefully we'll get a meeting going to finish that work. We have to complete the administrative code at this point. Moving down to number 2, blighted properties, Mr. Haas.
Yes, sir. Last night, the Blighted Property Committee of Luzerne County met 5 p.m., met for about an hour, had a full contingent of people there. And so far, we've received 8 applications from 2 different municipalities altogether. They were all incomplete in some way, shape, or form. So hats off to Sharon Lawrence, who wears a lot of hats, and made some recommendations on how we can further streamline the process, communicate to the municipalities and those who fill out the forms exactly what is required. There's a little bit of ambiguity still, even though we put a lot of time into it. And again, our goal is to really be that last resort once the code enforcement officials have done their work. And I think, I say I, but we're thinking that really once this gets underway, it's going to be a lot more user-friendly when we start seeing some success. So we're looking at, Sharon has contacted those folks, and we're looking at receiving full packets for the next meeting, which is going to be May the 20th, Monday night,
Okay.
5 p.m.
Riverfront Parks, they have not met since February, which was a night that we were meeting as a council, so we have had no information from that. The Plains Township TIF Committee has not met since late in 2018, so there's no new information in that regard. Public comment?
Can I just mention something?
Absolutely.
Sorry, the retirement board will have a meeting April 17th here. Public, any county employees, everybody's welcome. Council members, and
What time, Mr. Keller?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock?
And then was asked about the amount that we were funded, or what percentage our funding was. My guess was 74%. It is 74%.
Okay.
To compare, the public employees, state teachers' retirement fund is around 55–56%. And that's billions of dollars. Ours is pretty good. We'd like it to be better.
We would like it to be better, yes. Anyone from the public who would like to address the council at this time? I don't have any slips indicating anyone, so anyone who would like to address the council at this time. We have a motion adjourned.
So moved.
Ms. Wakes? Ms. LeVeaux, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'll give you a shout.
Absolutely.